Welcome to another episode of Football Scientific with me, Aaron Sauter. I'm a writer for footballanalysis1.com. I'll be soon releasing a quarterback preview in terms of fantasy football for the 2025 NFL season, and I write about the Cincinnati Bengals for footballanalysis1.com. I also write about the Hamilton Tiger-Cats on CFLNewsHub.com. Check that out. Wrote an article last night. I'll be going through some of those details, but there's a full article in that from last night. Also here on Football Scientific, we talk about the ELF, the NAL, the IFL, and the UFL. Trying to keep up all the spring footballs happening right now, getting ready for the NFL season slowly but surely. Okay, so today I'm joined by my co-host, Tyler the Tiger. Hey everyone, Tyler the Tiger's here. We're going to go through this weekend's outcomes, and we're going to see how that went, and then what's next. Okay, and then in the afternoon, we're going to do our power rankings for the IFL, the ELF, and the CFL. There's no reason to do a power ranking for the UFL anymore. The championship game is set. It's going to be the Michigan Panthers and the DC Defenders meeting in St. Louis. And they're also not going to do power rankings for the NAL, National Arena League, as they are set with the Belmont Renegades. I believe they're going to host the Omaha Beef. Okay, and it should be this weekend coming up. But we'll see how it goes in terms of releasing the information. The NAL tends to be slow in releasing the information. But the teams that are still in, the leagues that are still in season right now are the, where we need power rankings. CFL is just starting. ELF is a quarter of the way through the season. IFL is about halfway through the season. So we can keep up with those as we go. And then we'll add more as we get, close to the NFL season. So that's the plan. All right, Tyler, you ready to talk about some football? Let's get it done. Okay, here we go. So first, in the NFL, some NFL things that have happened recently. First, late last week, Pittsburgh Steelers finally signed quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The details of his contract came out this weekend. He signed a one-year contract for $13.65 million. Way less than he was hoping to, sign for. But with incentives, he could hit $19.5 million. And I think for a contract for Aaron Rodgers, it's probably a good call to have incentives. If he ends up getting hurt in the first game like he did for the Jets, then he doesn't get that. He only gets the $13.65 million. So I I would do an incentive contract for an old quarterback. No offense to Aaron Rodgers, but he's an old quarterback. Okay. Buffalo Bills running back James Cook. He has put his home up for sale again, because he wants a contract extension. It's the second time he's done that ploy, so he put it down last time. So, I don't know. He's trying to leverage where he can leverage. Still has 1 year left on his rookie contract, though. They may not want to keep him forever, Former San Francisco 49ers receiver Chris Conley is retiring from football. He's out. Dallas Cowboys, NFL, and former DC Defenders cornerback Kelvin Joseph was arrested this weekend and charged with DWI, and he led to the death of a 27-year-old woman. She died in a car wreck from him, so he's been arrested for that. Houston Texans, they plan to sign running back Nick Chubb. He has to pass a physical today. So the Bears were looking to get him. Washington Commanders were looking to get him. The Browns were thinking about getting him back. But it looks like the Texans are going to pull the trigger and pick up, no offense, they're going to figure it out and sign Nick Chubb. And that would allow him to be a good tandem with Joe Mixon. I think it's going to be I have Joe Mixon on my fantasy team. And he's one of my keepers in a keeper league. And I'm concerned that maybe he'll take away some of Joe Mixon's carries. But Joe Mixon doesn't always get all the carries anyway. So, it is what it is. I might have to reconfigure that running back situation. Green Bay Packers, they plan to release two-time Pro Bowler cornerback Jaire Alexander. They don't want to, but they have to for salary cap purposes. Cincinnati Bengals, they're planning to cut linebacker Germaine Pratt after he requested a trade very similar to Trey Hendrickson. They don't want to just cut Trey Hendrickson because he's a very valuable player due to the fact that he led the NFL in sacks last year. But that doesn't win you Super Bowls, man. That doesn't win you Super Bowls. So I would not go all in for Trey Hendrickson. I also can't see cutting him and getting nothing for him. Germaine Pratt, less of a market for very average inside linebacker. So I can see what it is, cut him. get the headache out of the room. Trey Hendrickson, they need to get something back for him. He may not play. They need to get something for him. Okay. In the CFL, there were 2 more games played. We went to Friday's game and Thursday's game, but two more games. Hamilton Tiger Cats opened their season at Calgary against Calgary St. Peters. Basically, how it went down, they threw for 304 passing yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions. Good game by Bo Levi Mitchell, but they only had 47 rushing yards, and that's, if you want to win the game, you better run the ball. Okay, you better establish the run game, and you're going to have a chance to win the game. Passing teams do not win these big games. Okay. Defensively, they had 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. The defensive backfield was very good for the Tiger Cats, but Calgary Stampeders, they threw for 284 with 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, so that means they did well against the pass. But then Calgary ran the ball for 158 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. That's the game, y'all. And that led to a Calgary Stampeders 38-26 point win. I've always said, and it's on the board behind me, if you want to win the game, rushing yards are more important than passing yards. And that is another data point to prove that fact, okay? Edmonton Elks, they played the BC Lions. Elks had 178 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. They had 87 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns. Cody Fajardo scored 2 touchdowns. I guess he's not a short yardage just guy. He won a Grey Cup. He should be a starter here, but straightforward is. BC Lions had 324 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But here's the key stat. They ran for 124 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. They had 2 sacks and an interception. So because they won in the running game, boop, and they got an interception, boop, they win the game 31-14 decisively. Because they hit 2 major data points. Okay? They won in the running game and they got an interception. Boop, got it. Okay? Some news that came out of Hamilton. Unfortunately, GM Ted Gavea is struggling with cancer. He announced this weekend that the cancer is spread and he's going to have to miss some time. He's not quitting. He's going to miss some time to get some treatments. He's still going to stay in contact with the front office people and the team. But Orlando Steinauer, team president, former head coach, and director of player personnel, Cyril Penn's going to have to carry more of a load while Ted Gavea, he battles cancer. Okay. Also, the Tiger Cats released American wide receiver Josh Johnson, and they added American quarterback Jake Dalagala. And why is that important? Well, first of all, adding a quarterback is important anytime. But Dalagala played for the Saskatchewan Roughriders for 2 years, 2022 and 2023. And he played in 28 games for them. He threw for 2,795 yards for the Roughriders, 12 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So he wasn't the best quarterback for him, but he's been with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and that's who the Tiger Cats have to play this week in a home opener. They got to play against Saskatchewan. So to bring in Jake Dalagala, they give them some insight on how to beat the Roughriders. That's interesting. Now, I think he's a pretty decent backup quarterback, so they may want to keep him longer than that. But, that's why they're bringing him in for this moment. I wrote an article about that and Ted Gavea. It's on CFL News Hub. Boop. Okay. Boom. Next, the UFL had their USFL Conference Championship game yesterday, an XFL Conference Championship game. I mentioned it's going to be the Panthers and DC Defenders playing in St. Louis next weekend. So I kind of gave away the ending. But Michigan Panthers threw for 238 yards, a touchdown. No interception by Bryce Perkins. That's a good game by him. They ran the ball 144 yards for 4 touchdowns. That's very good. They had 1 sack, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery, so they had a good rushing day, and they had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. That's 3 turnovers. It's probably a good sign. Birmingham Stallions, they threw for 242 yards for 2 touchdowns, but they threw an interception using Matt Corral and Jamar Smith. Actually, Matt Corral threw an interception, and Jamar Smith threw an interception, so they both threw interceptions. That's your 2 interceptions. They only ran the ball for 61 rushing yards. That's going to be your difference maker. Turnovers and losing in the running game. Boom. So the Michigan Panthers, for the first time ever, are USFL Conference champions. Next, in the XFL Conference that came on after that, DC Defenders traveled to the St. Louis Battlehawks. And it was a very good game for the DC Defenders. They had 201 passing yards for a touchdown and interception, 187 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. That's how you do this thing. Defensively, they had a very good defense, but not recently, but throughout the season. They got 5 sacks. That's huge. 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery. So it's 2 turnovers and 5 sacks. That's a good game, along with 187 rushing yards, almost 200 yards rushing. That's an impressive game by the DC defenders. Battlehawks had 151 passing yards for 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Their quarterbacks, the Max, the dude that played at TCU, I forget his name. He's not Duggan. He's not that good. And Brandon Silvers got in, and they both kind of played like poop. Battlehawks did rush for 83 yards, but 187 rushing to 83 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Boom. Panthers won that aspect of the game, okay? So they got more rushing yards than the St. Louis Battlehawks, okay? All right, next. In the IFL, we have several games in the IFL. The Arizona Rattlers played the Jacksonville Sharks. I really felt like Arizona probably had a leg up on Jacksonville in that game, but did not play out that way. This is another game. It's 2 games in a row for Arizona. I'm not sure how they lost. They did a lot of things right. How do you lose when you do everything right? Turnovers. That's it. But that's not in the story here. So I mean, it's just the flow of the game. Jacksonville came up very motivated, as foreshadowing the outcome, but Arizona threw for 133 yards with Dalton Snead at quarterback. He did throw 2 interceptions and a touchdown, so that's not the best day ever. He ran for 140, or the Rattlers ran for 146 rushing yards, maybe not all Dalton Snead, but some of it. And they scored 6 rushing touchdowns. That's an impressive day. They had 2 tackles for loss, including 1 sack. They did recover 1 fumble and had 1 interception. So, I mean, that's a solid day from Arizona. Jacksonville Sharks only threw for Tyler Huff at quarterback. Threw for 79 passing yards and 1 interception, no touchdowns. Doesn't sound like a winning effort. And they ran for 116 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. So in defensively, they had 3.5 tackles for loss and none more sacks and 2 interceptions. So at the end of this thing, Jacksonville wins 54-48. Hard-fought battle. Really, Arizona did a lot of what you have to do to win the game. Jacksonville did not do what you have to do to win the game. But Jacksonville got one out at home. They're going to be dangerous at home, it looks like. I mean, they really beat what I thought was the best team in the league. And they got a big win, 54-48 at home. That's an impressive win. Especially since they didn't really win in any category. They didn't win any part of the game, but they won the game. Sometimes football's confusing. Massachusetts Pirates traveled to Fisher's Freight. Pirates came out, threw for 92 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. They ran for 86 rushing yards and a touchdown. Fisher's Freight threw for 128 passing yards, 0 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Not quite as good. They ran the ball for 23 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. So 86 rushing yards, 23 rushing yards. Really nothing happened on defense. 2 touchdowns thrown. Massachusetts wins 40-23. Nothing all that impressive, but they got the win. So I guess them at 4 wins. That's going to change the power rankings a little bit, I believe. It's an 8th loss in a row for Fisher's Freight. They're crashing, man. Next, another big game. Quad City Steamrollers, who I had as number 1 in the power rankings last week, traveled to the San Antonio Gunslingers. Daquan Neal's back at quarterback. He threw for 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Not dazzling numbers. They did run the ball for 44 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. But here's the key stat. Defensively, they had 4 tackles for loss and 4 interceptions. That's a lot of interceptions, y'all. San Antonio Gunslingers threw for 231 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. San Antonio Gunslingers ran the ball for 56 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. They had 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 1 interception. The 4 interceptions sank the San Antonio Gunslingers. I really don't think the Quad City Steamrollers did everything they needed to do to win this game. But you can't throw 4 interceptions in a game and expect to win the game. And they didn't. They lost 51-37. Could have won the game had they not thrown 4. Just play a little bit better. Run the ball a little better. You beat them in the key stat. But the turnovers got you. 4 interceptions. That's not going to work in any league. Vegas Nighthawks traveled to Northern Arizona Wranglers. Another confusing game statistically. you watch the game, you understand what happened, you field position, stuff like that. But statistically, it's a weird game. Vegas Nighthawks, they threw Jaden DeLora as their quarterback. They threw for 36 passing yards and 1 touchdown, no interceptions. They ran the ball for 96 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns and a sack. Northern Arizona Wranglers threw the ball for 19 yards. They threw the ball for 19 yards, no touchdown, no interception. And they ran the ball for 26 yards, 1 touchdown. This game was won by the Vegas Nighthawks special teams and defense. The offense was mysteriously bad. They're usually a better team than that, but their defense and special teams pulled it out. They won 63-43 with defense and special teams. It's a high-scoring game where no one plays offense. That's weird. That's a very defensive game. Tulsa Oilers went to Bay Area Panthers. I feel like this was being a close game. It was a shootout. Tulsa on the road threw for 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They ran the ball for 63 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. They had 3 tackles for loss, 1 interception, and 1 fumble recovery. Bay Area Panthers threw for 147 yards, 1 interception, 1 touchdown, 42 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. Okay, so right now it sounds like Tulsa won. Okay, but it's, the reason I said that way is probably because they didn't win. But they did win in a lot of categories. But the 2 interceptions, probably too many compared to the 1 interception from Bay Area. Bay Area's defense had 8 tackles for loss, including 1 sack, and 1 fumble recovery and 2 interceptions. So 3 turnovers, 3 takeaways by Bay Area, 2 takeaways by Tulsa. That was the difference in the game. Bay Area wins 44-41. So the difference is the turnovers there. They got outrushed, but the two interceptions and the fumble really messed up. Tulsa, if they didn't have the interception, they would have won that game. Bay Area had 2 interceptions. They should have lost the game, but they didn't. They didn't. San Diego Strike Force traveled to the Tucson Sugar Skulls. I mentioned Strike Force have not always played at the level they should play, but they played pretty well this week. They had 192 passing yards for 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. They ran the ball for 54 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Defensively, they had 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 1 interception. That's 2 takeaways. Tucson Sugar Skulls threw for 247 passing yards for 5 touchdowns and an interception. They ran the ball for 39 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. But defensively, only had 1 tackle for loss. So the takeaways and the rushing yards allow the San Diego Strike Force to pick up a big win, because now they're stepping closer and closer to gaining a playoff spot. Okay, in the NAL, we had a championship game. So in the American Division championship game, we had the American Division. We had the Columbus Lions travel to the Beaumont Renegades. I really felt like the league wanted Columbus to be in this championship game, but they just couldn't do it. They couldn't play well enough. That's foreshadowing the outcome. Columbus did throw the ball for 209 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. They did rush the ball 62 yards for 3 touchdowns. But Beaumont defense really didn't do much. Beaumont Renegades threw for 119 passing yards for 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. And they ran the ball 127 times for 5 touchdowns, and they recovered 1 fumble. So they won in every area. They didn't throw any interceptions. Boop. They outrushed them and scored more rushing touchdowns. Boop. And they had a takeaway win. So Beaumont wins the American Division, and they're going to the championship game. They're going to host it against the next team we're going to talk about. Beaumont wins 56-45. Pretty entertaining game, although Columbus had a chance to win the game and kept messing up on offense. Turnovers on the goal line. In the National Division, we had the Colorado Spartans travel to Omaha Beach. They played a 35-34 game last week, but it's hard to say how hard either team was playing, as they needed to play each other this week. So what happened? Colorado Spartans came to Omaha. They threw for 251 passing yards, 6 touchdowns and interception. They ran for 29 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. And when they had 1 quarterback sack. That's what you'd expect from Colorado. They don't usually run the ball that well. Recently, they used to be a running team that couldn't pass the ball well. But since they've gotten better here, they pass the ball and don't run as well now. Omaha Beef, they ran for 178, they threw for 178 passing yards, 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and they ran for 130 yards, 4 touchdowns. So they won the rushing game. They win the game, 71-54. That's just an example where you win the run game, you win the game. Boop, got it. Okay, next. In the ELF, we had a bunch of European League of Football matchups. First, Berlin traveled to the Hamburg Sea Devils. Berlin showed something in week 1, but haven't showed it since, but they kind of came back and showed something. They threw for 348 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions. 4 interceptions is not going to work out for you, no offense. They ran the ball 58 rushing yards and a touchdown. Okay, so 4 interceptions, that's hurting you a lot. Hamburg Sea Devils threw for 230 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, and ran for 176 yards. They win the running game. They win the turnover battle. Hamburg Sea Devils win the game 31-14 to go to 2-2. Berlin's now 1-3. Tirol Raiders traveled to their Austrian rival, Vienna Vikings. I figured they would play better than this, but they did not. So they threw the ball, Tirol Raiders, threw the ball for 94 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They ran the ball for 146 rushing yards and 0 rushing touchdowns. Vienna Vikings, they threw the ball for 177 passing yards, 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And they ran the ball for 119 yards and 1 touchdown. So this is one of those rare games where Vienna did not win the rushing battle, but they won the passing battle so convincingly that they ended up winning the game 41-7. There wasn't a lot of turnovers. Tirol just couldn't put it together. Just could not put drives together. Okay, Madrid Bravos traveled to Feyenoord and Throners. I figured this would be a thrashing by the Madrid Bravos and Reed Senate. And that's pretty much what you got. Madrid threw 466 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and no interceptions. They ran the ball for 138 yards, and they didn't get any touchdowns, but they did run the ball for 138 yards. That's important. Feyenoord and Throners threw for 124 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and they ran the ball for 63 rushing yards, no touchdowns on the ground. So 138 rushing yards plus 6 passing touchdowns versus 63 rushing yards and 1 passing touchdown. Madrid won 45-7, and they're at 3-1. They're climbing up the standings. Next, Prague Lions visited the Wrocław Panthers. I feel like the Wrocław Panthers were the better team here, but that was not the case, foreshadowing the outcomes. So the Prague Lions, they passed the ball 117 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. They did run the ball for 149 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Very fundamental game by Prague. Wrocław Panthers threw for 249 passing yards. They had 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. And they only ran the ball for 55 rushing yards and a touchdown. So that rushing battle, the turnover battle, wins again. Prague Lions get a huge win, 45-30. Probably the best win I've ever seen them get. That was probably the most important win in their franchise history, honestly. Okay. Paris Musketeers traveled to play Lorient Fire. Remember, in week 1 they played each other, and I think Paris won that game by like 13-12 or something. It was crazy, 14-13. This time around, Paris is getting better. Ryan Fire seems to be struggling. Paris passed the ball for 103 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. They ran the ball for 240 rushing yards. That's huge. Ryan Fire passed the ball for 68 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That's 1 giveaway. And they ran the ball for 95 rushing yards and a touchdown. 240 to 95 rushing yards and 1 interception to none. Paris wins the game 31-7. It's an ugly game by the Ryan Fire. Cologne Centurions, we mentioned they're pretty bad right now. They're pretty bad. They traveled to Frankfurt Galaxy. The Centurions threw for 55 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. They ran the ball for 107 yards and 1 touchdown. Frankfurt Galaxy threw the ball for 201 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. So they're equal. Cologne threw 3 interceptions. And then they ran for 261 rushing yards without their main running back, who I figured Cologne would have a chance to shut down the Frankfurt Galaxy without their main running back, but that was not true. They ran for 261 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. 261 rushing yards, 107, you're going to win the game. 3 interceptions versus 1, you're going to win the game. Last game of the weekend, Munich Ravens, who are undefeated, traveled to the Stuttgart Surge. Stuttgart Surge have been up and down, up and down, up and down. But this game, Stuttgart Surge threw for 220 passing yards for a touchdown and no interceptions. They ran the ball for 108 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, Munich Ravens, they passed the ball for 228 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And they ran the ball for 1 touchdown. So what happened in this game? Munich loses their first game of the year 36-28 because of special teams and turnovers. Special teams and turnovers. They outrushed Surge, and that's what you're gonna have to do when you're a kind of team like Munich Ravens are. They're a ground and pound team. They did that, but they still lost because of the turnover. That happens. So that's the outcome of the ELF. That's the outcomes of all this weekend, spring football games, alternate football, whatever you want to call it. I'll be back this afternoon to talk about power rankings for the ELF, the CFL, and the IFL, and see how that's playing out. Plus any other news that happens along the way, probably after 6 or so we'll see how that plays out. Football Scientific, this portal is now closed.